All right. So excited to have Jennifer Allwood on the show. Thanks for being here, Jennifer.
I'm excited. This is going to be so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Now, I know we've ran in kind of parallel circles for a little bit here. We've seen you at conferences, we've been at masterminds together.
Yes.
And I feel like I feel like heard of the overflow of Jennifer, like the benefit,
Aw.
like the bubble over effect of you touching people's lives. Whenever your name comes in a conversation, it's like, oh my gosh, she so helped me
Thank
with this
you.
thing, or I got this strategy from her. And so we're excited to dig out some gold today on the show.
Yeah.
Um, I know you wrote a book about fear. Fear is not the boss of you. This is a big topic in our world because I feel like it's one of those big walls that holds people
Mhm.
back from really stepping into who are they made to be? Like, what is that
Mhm.
thing that's on their heart? And so, Jennifer, I kind of want to know, um, this book, was there a moment that you feel like you drew the line in the sand? You're like, I really feel like I need to put this message out there about fear and getting over
Yeah.
that.
Well, so I started the idea of having a book probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I have a relatively large social media following, and so that lends itself to a traditional publishing deal. And so at first I had blogged for years about the painting company that I owned and decorating people's houses. And so I thought that the book was going to go in that direction. But actually, when I had somebody ask me about doing a book and they wanted to represent me, they were like, I don't think it's about painting. And I was like, you know what? I don't either. Not that that wasn't a good topic, but I just felt like there was something bigger and that I had a bigger message. And so when we really like dove down on, okay, what would a message I would want to have in a book forever? Because here's the really weird thing, Stephen, is when you write a book, like you can't delete it like a social
Sure.
media post. You know what I mean? Like if I do a podcast episode and later I'm like, oh man, I was a knucklehead, like I can have my team take it down. Or if I post something on social media, I can just go back and take it off. You write a book, it's there forever. And so that felt kind of weighty, you know? And so I'm like, gosh, what would I want to write about? So I worked with a whole team at Zondervan and we worked for a long time to try to figure out what the topic would be. And we just kept coming back to that. Even though I'm a business coach, what I really am probably best at is helping women do things that they're scared to do. To help them figure out what is the call of God on their life. How can they do that even if they're afraid? And what does that look like just to be really obedient and to do things that you're scared to do? Because the truth is, we're all scared at some degree. And what's interesting is I wrote the book back in 2019. And do you know much about the traditional publishing world? Because it's a weird world.
No, we know the Amazon like KDP world, but well,
Mhm.
traditional world is like a whole nother
Okay.
territory.
So the way that it happens is, it takes a while to like, because I had 4 different publishing companies that, you know, were giving me offers for the book deal, and it was a 2-book deal, so we had to go through all of that, which was fine. But then, you have to turn in your manuscript, and it's a whole 'nother year until that thing is, like, on a bookshelf. So we picked what I was gonna write on, and the publisher came to me and said and it was in June of 2019, and they said, "Okay, Jennifer, you have 2 options. One, if you want this book to be out next summer, then you're going to need to write this book in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Otherwise, we can give you a year and 6 weeks to write the book." And so I was pondering because it was going to be summer vacation. We have 4 children. I tend to like, you know, being in the pool and vacationing and things. So when I was thinking about it and praying about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm really supposed to write this book in 6 weeks. And so
Wow.
that meant buckling down, really trying to like focus in addition to my normal coaching and my podcasting and things. And, it was interesting because I started the book and I wrote, I don't know, 40,000 words or something. And I decided it was absolute trash. So I threw it away. And then I restarted it, got to like 20,000 words. And I was like, this is dumb also. And I think this is
Um,
kind of sometimes probably normal. And so it was literally my 4th try.
wow.
My husband got me a hotel room in downtown Kansas City. And he's like, just go and like be there and just write the stinking thing. And I did like that post-it note, you know, thing where people like have all these big ideas and they put it on Post-it notes and you put it on a wall and I was able to arrange the book that way and it like kind of flooded out of me and I was like, bada boom, bada bing, we're done. So I turned it in, got it turned in 6 weeks. That was great. And then fast forward to March of 2020 and my book's coming out on April 7th
Wow.
Mm.
and it's March 2020. It's actually my husband's birthday, March 21st, and the whole world shuts down because of COVID. And I had a 12-city book tour that was planned and, you know, was doing radio or television in a lot of those cities and the entire thing had to be canceled. I had conference for 400 women in Kansas City the first week of April, and they were all gonna get my book, and
Wow.
we are gonna talk about the book. That had to go virtual,
Wow.
and I was like, "What on earth is even happening?" I mean, you know, it just the timing of that, it just felt it was the worst possible ever time to launch a book because all the Barnes& and Nobles here, at least in Kansas City, everything shut down. Where are you guys physically located? Remind me.
We're in Northern California,
Okay.
Chico.
So you were shut down also.
Yeah.
And so, the world shut down. Nobody's worried about buying books. They're worried about, staying alive. And now we're all homeschooling our kids. And so on one hand, it felt like the absolute worst time to put out a book about fear. But now in retrospect, that it's been a couple of years, I can see if there's ever going to be a book about doing big, hard, and scary things and how to deal with the emotion of fear, like I'm guessing during the pandemic was probably perfect for some people. So that's my book story right there in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a huge thing in the air in that season.
Yes.
Like, I was reading at that time, I was reading, Trust Me, I'm Lying, The Confessions of a Media Manipulator by Ryan Holiday. And he talked about how the two biggest motivators sometimes, or not motivators, but drivers of traffic is fear, and anger. Okay. And
Yeah.
so
Oh,
after I'm reading
interesting.
that book and I'm seeing all the headlines and all these things, I'm like, just you see like the fear being amplified in that season.
Yeah.
But the people we know, us included, who took big moves of faith in that season,
Mhm.
like the results of that were just so incredible. Where did you see like did you see people getting this book in that season and it unlocking something in them?
I did, and I'm somebody that's always had a coach. I coach, and I believe in the coaching industry. I believe that we always need people who are further ahead than us, who can see our blind spots and also kind of draw out of us,
Yeah.
the very best things. And during that season, one of my coaches said to me, she said, "Jennifer, you may not have the sales on this book that you want because there's a lot of pressure in the traditional book space to be a New York Times bestseller." And I found out so much about that world during that season, like how that's really manipulated in some cases, and it was really an eye opener, and she said, "What I would rather you focus on is instead of going wide and selling a ton of books, I want you to worry about the depth, and that the books that you do the people you do get your book in their hands, like, whether or not it affects their life and whether or not it leashes something for them," and I get email after email, not, every day, but I have a whole folder on my computer called encouragement that I just keep because when people take the time to email me or they send me a DM on social media, I mean that matters because it's a lot of work to write a book, and so I did. Even at the end of my book, I had basically like an altar call, if you will, for people that don't know Jesus, and I've had a handful of people who
Wow.
got saved by reading my book, which is not a Christian book, by the way, because I'm really a businesswoman who happens to love Jesus. I'm not in the ministry space, if that makes
Good.
sense. And so, I just keep reminding myself of that. It went to number one on Amazon in the first 6 hours, and it went back to number one on Amazon in like Christian leadership and business leadership two more times over the first couple months. So I don't know, random. Like at the end of the day, like it was just going to do what it was going to do, and so yeah,
Yeah.
it's been kind of fun to still watch the tail on that. It's been
Yeah.
Yes.
interesting. But and so then I had a second book deal that needed to be like the follow-up to that. And that wasn't nearly as fun to write. And it was like a coffee table book. I remember the first person I ever saw with a coffee table book was Joanna Gaines. Do you guys know who Joanna is? And that's like the space that I used to be in. I was never on HGTV, but I've met with Chip and Jo several times. They're precious people. And so I just remember her little cute coffee table book and was thinking, okay, that'll be easy to do when I did my contract in the beginning. And it was easy enough, but it just, I don't know. At that point, I was kind of over it. And so I really feel like I've got at least one, if not two more books in me. I don't know that I'll go the traditional route again, though. I really like your idea of doing it differently on Amazon. So there's
Yeah.
that.
That's so
Ooh,
amazing.
exciting.
Yeah. I would love to know because you hit on this earlier, Jennifer, about everybody gets scared when you are doing something new. It's uncomfortable. Even like all like the brain waves and everything, like there's science backing that, like your body and your mind wants to keep you comfortable. And so that's
Yes.
why there's like that butterfly feeling or doing it scared. And
Mhm.
so how do you coach women when to like do it scared and to know that that's a normal part of the process? Like if they're starting out in the very beginning.
hmm Well, and I think that's kind of the price to entry. I mean, and the other thing is like you could be scared staying stuck. So we really get to always pick our scared because it's scary to stay stuck in one place and be uncomfortable with your life and be wishing could do something different, wishing you were setting a different example for your kids. Like that's scary too. Right. But you hit on it exactly right, Chelsea. Our brain, like God designed our brains in such an amazing way that it was designed just to always keep us safe.
Mhm.
And so what your brain doesn't understand is if I'm standing on the edge of a cliff looking over, I'm thinking about how we were just in Sedona last week
Mm.
Oh,
hiking, and
yeah.
there were a couple sketchy spots where we were on the edge of a cliff. And so your brain doesn't know if you're staring at the edge of a cliff, like that kind of fear, or if you're sitting down to open up your first business. Like your brain can't
Yeah.
differentiate. All it knows is warning. back off, stop, you're going to die. And the truth is, like, we're not going to die by starting a business, or we're not going to die by starting our social media accounts. And so I think what often happens is precious women think to themselves, okay, I'll start or I'll do the thing as soon as I feel more comfortable. And often we have to do it and then our feelings catch up with us. And so I have a whole chapter in Fear's Not the Boss of You about how I think the world wants to really sell people, especially women, on the topic of confidence. I mean, you can't go to
Right.
the grocery store without seeing, a newspaper, or not newspaper, but magazine
Yeah.
article on confidence. And so women are waiting until they feel a certain way to do big, hard, and scary things, when the truth is first you just have to have courage, just those 10 seconds, those 20 seconds, that whatever, to be courageous enough to do something. And a lot of times the confidence will then follow. So we really have it out of alignment. That's why books on confidence sell a lot better than like my book did, because they're wanting to feel and then do what actually you usually have to do and then you'll feel. So there's that.
Wow. That's an interesting flip. Do you do anything, Jennifer, like on a regular basis or like seasonally to kind of push yourself into uncomfortability or like stretch yourself in areas? Or do you have anything right now? You're like, oh, I'm stepping into this. It's a new thing. And then
I
I hear
love
that
this
feeling
question.
again.
I love this. Okay, so let me tell you a story. So I was 39. I'm so much older than you guys. And I had a girlfriend who told me that there was a triathlon in Kansas City. She's like, "Do you want to go with me and watch my friend in this triathlon?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess." It was my birthday weekend. It was a nice Saturday. We had a lot of kids. I was like, "Sure, it's an opportunity to hang out with a friend." So I went and watched a triathlon. Have you ever watched a triathlon? They swim, they bike, and they run. Okay. And I'm watching this triathlon, and there's everything from like 15-year-old girls to a woman who is in her 70s. And
Wow.
I can't swim. I couldn't swim at the time at 39. And so I'm watching this woman who's in her 70s put on like this little face mask thing with the snorkel up, and she's jumping into a lake. It wasn't a pool swim, it was a lake swim. And she's swimming 500 yards. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she is so brave. And then she's like the last one out of the water, and the crowd's all screaming and
Oh,
everybody's loving her. And I start crying. And then I'm like, why am I crying? Like, this is dumb. And then I'm thinking, gosh, I saw girls that were of all shapes, of all ages, of all fitness levels doing this
yeah.
triathlon. Like, why can't I do a triathlon? And so then I'm having this argument on the inside. I'm like, are you stinking crazy? Well, why can't you do it? If these ladies could do it, well, so I'm arguing back and forth. And I made the decision right there. I want to do this exact triathlon next year for my 40th birthday, this exact one, because it's always my birthday weekend in Kansas City. It's in July. And so made that decision. And then I remembered, oh, shoot, I can't swim. Like, I'm one of those people, you get water in your face in the shower and I like sputter, So like when I say I can't swim, I mean can't float, like I'm a sinker. And so I ended up hiring a swim coach, and off and on for a whole year, learned how to swim. Um, a triathlon comes up for my 40th birthday. And it was really cool because I still blogged at the time. And the morning show, the one with Matt Lauer,
Mhm.
contacted me. I'll never forget. I had my kids like in a movie, and I get this telephone call from the Today Show, and I listened to the voicemail. And I'm like, surely that's a joke. But I call them back, and they said they were doing a segment on women turning 40 in a non-traditional way, like celebrating, not going to Vegas to celebrate, but doing it in a different way. And they said, we saw your blog post about you celebrating 40 with your first triathlon and learning how to swim. We'd like to send somebody out and do a segment on you. So out comes the news people. And I gathered a group of my girlfriends that were going to do the triathlon with me for my birthday. And we were in spandex on national television. It was, it was a very humbling time. And, but I did the triathlon. And the truth is that I had a panic attack on it.
Wow.
And I had to go like swim over to one of the lifeguards who has a buoy. And he's like, "Hey, ma'am, you doing okay? Do you need to stop?" And I thought, I'm going to punch this guy. First of all, don't call me ma'am when I'm in the water. And no, I'm not going to quit. And so I ended up finishing it. And as soon as I got done, I signed up for another and another and another. And I did
Wow.
10 triathlons in a 6-year period. And I had a panic attack in the water on every single one of them, even the ones that were in a swimming pool.
Wow.
Wow.
And I kept thinking to myself, God, why do you keep like inspiring me to sign up for this stuff? Because I got to train. It's not like I'm a natural athlete. I naturally tend to love Oreos. And so I'm like, I got to train and I got to keep reminding myself that I can swim. And it takes a lot out of me emotionally.
Mm.
But what I knew that God was doing is he was preparing me for being scared in all these big business things.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that it's kind of like a muscle that you learn to exercise, like forcing yourself to do things out of your comfort zone. And so the short answer to your question, Stephen, is yes. I mean, God used that for a good 6 years to keep telling me, even if you panic, I want you doing it.
Mhm.
Even if you're nervous, I still want you doing it. And, over the course of that 6 years too, I was able to rope in a whole lot of other women. I started a small Facebook group here in Kansas City for women who wanted to do triathlons. And sometimes I think it just takes one scared person to start this ripple effect. And so that was really, phenomenal. And so now we have things like we're getting ready to put out software to my clients in the next 6 weeks or so. Well, that's scary also. And it's something I knew nothing about. I'm totally out of my comfort zone. And I don't have any confidence in that area, but going through that season of training my body and my mind to do hard and scary things that I was fearful of has really boded me really well in business at this point. So I'm super grateful for that season.
I feel like I have a similar story of I, for years, told Steven, like, I want to sign up for this dance class. I have a dancing background, and I kind of didn't do it throughout like my college years, and we were newly married. And I feel like 3 years in a row, I was talking about this dance class. And then one day we were at a gym and there's like a flyer and it said like adult hip hop class, like this Wednesday. And it was like the thing I'd been looking for that I had been putting off for so long was staring right at me. And I showed up to the class super nervous. I hadn't danced in who knows when. I knew nobody. And the beautiful thing is that I learned to I call it like punching fear in the face, and I just learned to like get over it and like show up anyway and like be uncomfortable and like work a muscle that I hadn't worked in a really long time. And it created community connection. I look back on that and just like remember that feeling because we feel that all the time in business as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting that you bring that up because I wrote in the book about how I wanted to go back and do a hip hop class, how I'd always wanted to do that as an adult. And I said in the book, by the time I get this road, hopefully I will have signed up for it. And I signed up for it. And then the pandemic hit and they closed it down. I was like, come on. But I think I did go to two. And I was the oldest person. I'm 52 at this point. So I was probably 50-ish then. But I was the oldest person there, completely out of my comfort zone, feeling super panicky on the inside, like everybody's looking at me and, they're all thinking XYZ. And my husband has to remind me all the time, like, honey, nobody's thinking about you as much as you think they're thinking about you. So are you still doing that?
I have not done it in a while. I think for like 3 years in a row. And I haven't signed up since having kids, but maybe I need to. Maybe
you're in a different season right now. Yes, that's awesome though. Proud of you.
Thanks.
I love that. I would honestly encourage listeners, you're listening to the show. Maybe there's that thing that you're like, I know that's going to be scary, but I know I think as entrepreneurs, we're always like, what's the ROI? Like, what's the ROI? Like, it's going to take a lot of time, but like, there's some of these things that are, it's like an internal ROI, a return on investment of your time. And it's who you become in that process of stretching yourself that really prepares you for something you might even know is coming, And so that's just like, I just want to pause the podcast and just encourage people just to take a second to like, if there's something coming to your mind, go for it.
Yeah. And I can tell you from being someone that's 52 at this point. So, we're on the back nine of life, if you understand golf terminology, that the older you get, there's something weird that happens when you turn 40. You start really caring like less about what people think of you. But what happens when you turn 50 is you really start examining your life as a whole. Have I done enough? I'm going to be 60 and then 70 and 80, and then I'm not maybe physically going to be able to do some of the things that I've been wishing that I would do in my 30s and 40s and 50s. And so it really is like a perspective shifter that is really surprising me even in my 50s. Just like, I don't like that feeling of, okay, I don't want to get to where I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, I wanted to do this in my business and I wanted to do that. And I wish I had done this because you get to a point where, then it's kind of too late. And so I love that you brought that up to your audience to look at the thing that you're scared of doing. And it really is worth it. It really is worth the emotional things that you have to go through, because a lot of times the things that we're scared of stuff, they really are not nearly as bad as what we think they are. It's always interesting to me. I used to teach people how to do Facebook Lives. It's one of the ways I grew my Facebook page to 250,000 people back when Facebook Lives was a whole thing. And do you remember Periscope? I actually did Periscope first. Did you guys ever do Periscope?
I do remember.
Oh, I know. But I can remember like the first time I did Periscope thinking, I am going to throw up. And thinking, and my husband's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm thinking that everybody's going to show up and, you're scared of nobody showing up and then everybody's showing up and sweat's pouring down my back. And I got done and I was like, why was I so scared of that thing? Like, it really wasn't that big of a deal. And that's the kind of thing I used to teach about Facebook Lives too. Like, sometimes you do it for the first time. You're like, what was I making it such a big deal about? It was as hard as I thought it was going to. So that's
absolutely. Jennifer, I would love to know. I get this question often, and you have 4 kids, you've run multiple businesses, you have for a while. Like I get a question like I don't when women say like I don't have I feels like I don't have enough hours in the day or like I can't get everything done in my business, in my life, and you're being pulled in a million different directions. What are some like systems and structure that you set up in your business and your home that like maybe you even started with a long time ago that still is being implemented today?
Yeah. You're probably not going to like my answer, Chelsea, but I am an anti-system, anti-structure girl.
Got
And I consider myself totally a creative brain
Mm-hmm.
because I was in, the painting industry for 17 years before I closed down my painting company. And so like when I think about structure, I feel like really antsy on the inside
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me feel hivey and like, and a lot of
Sorry, I
your
said that word.
creative people do what?
I'm sorry I said that word then.
I know. Well, so it's interesting because I coach a lot of creative brains also.
Mhm.
And so the people that are listening right now that have a creative brain, they'll get exactly what I say because when I think of structures and systems, I think have to.
Mm.
And a lot of entrepreneurs are not wired to enjoy the have to. The reason they became entrepreneurs is because they want to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. So if you have a entrepreneur who has a creative brain and you think about structures and systems, like internally you'll throw elbows because you're like, I don't want to have to do everything at Tuesday at noon. Like that doesn't feel fun to me. That doesn't sound fun. And you end up getting really burnt out on your life and your business. And so I don't have any systems or structures. I like the fact that our life looks different every day. Um, I try to keep Mondays completely open on my calendar with no meetings and Fridays. I haven't worked Fridays in years and years and years because with 4 children, one of who we just adopted in the last couple of years, and we're old and she's young, and so we just need a little. I need a Friday to just kind of recoup every week and get myself prepared for the kids to be home and things. So those are 2 non-negotiables for me. I don't do Mondays, I don't do Fridays. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that. And for me, that works better. The one thing though that I have done right, that isn't a system, but it is kind of a structure, is I have outsourced and hired help for many, many, many years. And back when, we just had 2 of the 4 children, I realized, okay, I can't be a really great business owner and be a really great wife and be a really great mom and keep a clean house and try to stop, gaining weight from all the Oreos I'm eating. And so like something had to give.
Yeah.
And so I started even just, with hiring somebody to come help me with the house. And it's amazing the capacity that opens up for people.
Mhm.
And I had somebody tell me one time, like, you're not going to lose your mom card, Jennifer, just because you're not the one who's folding your kids' laundry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such an eye opener because otherwise the kids are home and I'm having to do that versus getting to spend time with them. So we've always had a lot of help around the house with not with the kids, but with house things. And that has allowed me to have more time to really focus on the business things. And it's such a blessing too. Like my mom cleaned houses for 20 years. And so that's what she loves to do and what she's gifted in. She's great at helping other people put systems in place and help keep them, focused in the house and help keep things running well. I'm on the total other side of that. I'm so grateful for people that can help me. So I house help. And then I started hiring out things in my business early on. I basically just took the money I was bringing in and put it right back in the form of people and team.
Mm.
Because I understood that God's only gifted me in a few ways, as he
Mhm.
has you guys, as he has
Yeah.
anybody listening. And I think what happens is business owners think, well, I should be able to do my social media and answer all my emails and be the one that's launching things and be the one that answers all the DMs. And, the list goes on and on and on. You
Yeah.
guys know. And the truth is, we're not good at all of those things. And sometimes it's not like I can't afford to hire help thing, but more for women, it's well, I feel like I should be doing it all myself.
Mhm.
I feel like it's really going to
Yeah.
be my business. I should be the one doing all the things. And I think that that's such a limiting mindset. Um, because even like from a biblical perspective, like, all parts of the body of Christ like are necessary. Like even in business, we need people that are better at certain things than us. And so I've surrounded myself with women who are very organized, who are way smarter than I am.
Mhm.
And these are like the women working for me who literally I've told many of them when I've hired them, like, I just need somebody to tell me what I have to do on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like literally just be the boss of me. Like I wrote the book, Fear's Not the Boss of Me, but I need my team to be the boss of me because I don't have the capacity to think through a lot of things. I'm good at just a couple things. I can write, I can speak, I can launch like crazy. I can teach women how to, start a business. I can help you get past your fear. But the other things, like I'm going to mess up. So I've always been really good at having other people, hiring them to do the things that either I'm terrible at or the things that really just steal my joy and my peace. So I don't have any systems. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, to me, that sounds like a system of like you have your 2 days that you don't, and then you have those people in place like helping you. And I know for me, like we've been outsourced, like laundry is one of those things that comes to mind that I had major roadblocks in when we started outsourcing. We even, I think one of our first
We're
podcast
like fighting about it
episodes,
on a podcast,
yeah, like,
basically.
and I've had conversations with different people about like, even seasonal outsourcing, and it's just like, it it takes sometimes a while for people to realize like the benefit. And now I'm like, well, I'm never going back to folding my laundry. I don't have any guilt, but I did for a long time because I just thought like you hit on it. Like just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. And now because
Yeah.
of that, I'm not spending my Saturday during nap time or when they're awake, like doing that. And so the
Yeah.
time
And
thing, yeah.
it's usually a win-win though, too, because
Definitely.
like I'm thinking of the woman that she comes to our house Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're going to laugh at the things she helps me with. And so tell your audience not to send me hate mail. But like I'm really bad at watering plants and outdoor flowers. And every year of my life, my family has laughed at me because we go buy things on Mother's Day and they're dead by the 4th of July. So like I told her, can you help me just keep things alive?
Yeah.
She comes and does our laundry and she, unloads the dishwasher and just helps do the things that bring me so much peace.
Yeah.
And like she's a grandmother. She's older than I am.
Yeah.
And her family is not close. And she had just retired from like a job of 20 some years
Wow.
at a department store when I was introduced to her. And so like she loves to come love on our dogs and to see the kids. And, it's her getting out of the house. So it really is like a win-win. And so yeah, if you're listening and you've got some sort of roadblock about getting some help, like figure out why. Because there's always a deeper reason than what we think. And if you can address that, because it's so much easier to grow your business when other parts of your life are handled. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When other people are really helping. My husband works full time with me. He's just started his own business though, which is golf apparel. And so like, could he do some of that? Yes, but that's not his gifting either. And I want him to have the capacity to focus on what he wants to focus on as well. So huge proponent of outsourcing.
Yes, definitely.
So good, Jennifer. I feel like I got one more question I want to sneak in, okay?
Okay.
Because you kind of mentioned it and Chelsea was talking about it. There's this big thing, with guilt, like whether it's about outsourcing, whether it's about working, whether it's
Mhm.
about even making money.
Mhm.
Where do you feel like that voice of guilt like comes from? And what has been the most successful thing you've seen even in your community coaching for people just to overcome that, to step through it, to start to live in a place of freedom?
Yeah. So if I do write another book, Stephen, I think it will be on women and money, first of all, especially Christian women and money, because there's a lot of hangups there. But um, guilt isn't always a really bad thing. Sometimes, if I speak harshly to one of my children in a way that they didn't deserve and isn't respectful, like I should feel guilty about that, right? It's conviction, which brings change, hopefully. And then I need to apologize, et cetera. So guilt isn't always a bad thing, but guilt around things like wherever God has blessed you at, or guilt around making money, like that's something totally different. And this is really, like I said, it's an area inside of the church with Christian women that is really problematic. And I have found that it's more problematic there than women who are outside of the Christian faith. They're not as hung up about making money as those of us that are inside of church. So that I think stems from sometimes what they've learned from, the church pulpit or how what they thought the Bible said about money. So there's that. But outside of like the Christian faith, I think so much of how we feel about money has to do with how we were raised. And so a lot of times people will start to make money in their business and they will give it all away. And I call that like the hot potato syndrome
Yeah.
because sometimes, because they're like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know
Yeah.
what to
Yeah.
do with it. I'll just give the whole thing away and spend it all. And sometimes we get so like even if our circumstances are not good, sometimes we'll get comfortable and we would rather grab for comfortable than uncomfortable. And so sometimes I think women feel like, well, who am I to make money? Well, somebody's going to make it. I mean, might as well be you. And so I'm constantly trying to get women to see the flip side. Like, let me give you an example. This weekend, we had three couples that we took to Arizona. We have a VRBO there outside of Scottsdale. And then we drove to Sedona and we hiked and we were celebrating my best friend being cancer free for 5 years
Oh, wow.
and celebrating our other friend being cancer free for 6 months. And my
Wow.
husband and I celebrating our 26th wedding anniversary. So we couldn't do things like that if this business didn't make the kind of money that it does. We wouldn't be able to have a house, that we can rent out to people or give to people in Arizona. We have another one in Florida that we rent out. And we just recently had some people stay at our house in Arizona who the woman had recently lost her father. She's going through a really hard time. So their family went and stayed. Like, that's a blessing to other people. And so if I'm being all up in my feelings and feeling weird about money coming in, I mean, when good people make good money, and I didn't come up with the saying, but good things happen. I don't know who said that, but I love that saying. There's another saying from Grant Cardone that says, money can't buy happiness, but poverty doesn't buy anything. And so when you're feeling guilty and weird about money, you need to examine why. Did it come from your childhood? Did it come from people who they were just probably doing the best that they could? I know in my house growing up, there was just a lot of stress around money. We had money, but like sitting down to pay the bills, I would just watch my parents fight. And so sometimes the topic of discussing money is what we've had to work through for me versus the guilt over making it. Cause I don't feel guilt about making it. Cause when I make more, I can give more. When I make more, I can impact more. I can do more things for other people. There's people hurting everywhere, every day. And while making them a casserole is a blessing, also paying their light bill is a blessing.
Yeah.
And you can't do that from zero. And so if you're someone that's listening and struggling with the idea of you're only comfortable with a certain amount of money coming into your business, like really examine why. Like, why is there a cap on that for you? And I guarantee you it came probably from childhood somewhere.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, why do I feel this way? Go and do that exercise that Jennifer just prompted you to do. Like, think back to what is holding you back. I know I've done that. I try and do that on any like wall that is coming up,
Yes.
and you'll be surprised at what you find. And I just believe breakthrough is waiting for you. So Jennifer, this has been like such an encouraging time. Thank you so much for being on. If our listeners want to hear more from you, where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. So if they're listening to the podcast, I have a podcast. It's called The Jennifer Allwood Show. It's not nearly as cute of a name as yours. So they can find that there. And I actually I've been podcasting for 6 years now. And so we have over 500 episodes. So we have this freebie if you want to go to jenniferallwood.com/podcast playlist. It's like a quiz to see where you're at in business. And we send you like my top 4 podcast episodes based on if you're kind of in the beginning
Wow.
stages, middle, or whatever. Because otherwise, like you land on somebody's podcast for the first time and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, there's 500 episodes. Where do I start? And so we've got that freebie at jenniferallwood.com/podcast playlist. Thank you for letting me give them that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer.
Bless you guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeitrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeitrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.